Hi folks, how are you doing? This is the first game as finished in this Zurich chess challenge. The game between Magnus Carlsen and Boris Gelfand, and it seems that the world champion is in a good shape still, though he hasn't played since November, since Chennai. So he beat in the first game Boris Gelfand. The other two games, Aronian-Anand and Nakamura-Caruana, are still being played. So let us see this game, a very interesting one. c4, g6, d4, knight f6. Magnus is white, by the way. Gelfand is black, and his main weapon against this d4 pawn opening is the Gruenfeld. So he's gonna have to play a little sideline of the Gruenfeld today. Knight f3, bishop g7, and g3, the fianchetto Gruenfeld. And Gelfand, black prepares to play d5 with c6. Obviously d5 at once is losing a pawn, so c6, bishop g2, and d5. Here Magnus plays a more or less rare move, not that common. In fact, the fifth more common. I mean the sixth, because there are no less than 5 other moves here for white much more common and popular, which are c takes, short castle, knight c3, knight bd2, and b3, which I think is quite creative and interesting to put the bishop on b2, I guess. Similar to what Magnus played in the first game of the World Championship match. But anyway, queen a4, speculating with that pinned pawn on c6. Really can't be, very dangerous for black. It's a matter of taste, I guess. Black has a couple of decent options apart from castlings, which is what Gelfand did. You can play, for instance, knight bd7. Black can also play d takes c4, queen takes, bishop e6, etc., playing more or less solid. And well, short castle was played here by black. White plays a short castle, and this is transposing into a position which Gelfand himself, as black, has had the previous year. In 2013 in the Alekhine Memorial against Fressinet. He drew that game. Knight fd7 was played in that game and is played in this game as well. I don't really know this game. These lines, this move is a little bit strange to me, but it's giving freedom to the bishop on g7 and maybe speculating with some quick e5. I don't know, not really sure if that's possible or that's the idea of black, but it's maybe a possibility. The queen goes back to c2, and now, well, no, this is modern chess. The same knight moves for the third time, going to f6. Magnus said in the press conference he was a little bit surprised with this move, but makes sense in this position. Bishop f4, and well, certainly in these moves in the opening, both players have lots of valid and logical alternatives, but we're not going to see them at all of them, because it doesn't make that much sense. The interesting part is coming in the middle game. Bishop f4, now bishop f5. This bishop is cool on f5, but the problem is it's letting b7 unguarded, so queen b3, moving the queen for the third time, but who cares if it's well placed right now. And queen b6, a typical way of defending these weaknesses in these structures. And neither player is fearing the doubled pawns after the queen exchange, because it would give them the open A file, the open A column for the rook. Knight bd2 here. Knight d4, a little bit committing, attacking on d4 already. Carlsen suggested, for instance, knight bd7, just not committing for the time being, just developing. Knight e4 was played by Gelfand, and now e3, defending. Now it's white who's attacking a pawn on d5, in fact. Of course, knight d7, you're losing a pawn, and after c takes d5, you probably have to take on b3. Otherwise, c takes d5, queen takes, I don't know, knight df6, queen b3, but this is a free pawn. I don't think there is any compensation for black, so it's going to be a really tough game for black. Pawn down without anything for it. So queen takes b3 was played by Gelfand, seems the most correct. Of course, a takes b3, much more natural. Taking with the knight, still some possibilities, still rising to some sharp game is playable yet, but maybe not that clear. He takes c4, and now you got knight a5 attacking both pawns. Now black probably will give it back with c3, b takes, knight takes c3, knight takes b7, knight d7, and well, lots of diagonals for the bishops, lots of mess here, and kind of sharp for my taste. I mean, I just have the feeling that this could go horribly wrong for either player if something is not handled carefully. So a takes b3 seems more natural. Now the rook is already playing on the a file. That's cool. Knight a6. The knight is going to try to go. Well, it's in fact going to go to b4. Try to go maybe to d3. The b4 square is a cool place to go. No way to harass him from there with a pawn, for instance. Instead, knight d7. Well, the knight doesn't have that many great places to go to. So after knight a6, a little move sequence, which is really a touch of genius in my opinion. Really great move. After c takes, g4. There it goes. Who would have thought about this move? Well, not me, at least, not in a million of years. This is a positional pawn sacrifice, which is absolutely correct, and I mean, this is tremendous. The most critical line, of course, is to take the pawn. Otherwise, Magnus thought after knight takes d2, knight takes bishop. If takes, of course, it's just transposing. Otherwise, bishop e6. Well, you could try to defend this, which is, of course, better for white. But, well, this is typical Carlsen style, Carlsen position. He will probably play, as he himself said on the press conference, g5, h4, have space on the king side, and just attack and just have hours and hours of torture for black. So this isn't pleasant at all. Instead, bishop takes g4, and the point is that after knight takes d4, d takes e4, knight d2, attacking the pawn with both pieces. So bishop f5 is not going to help black, as the pawn will be recaptured in good conditions. So the only and critical move which keeps the pawn is f5. But the problem is that the g4, the bishop on g4 is kind of locked down, really dubiously placed. And as Magnus himself pointed out, all of white pieces are pretty much the same that before the sequence, but black has worsened his positions quite a while. So a very interesting pawn sacrifice to improve your position and worsen opponent's position here. And well, although white has a cool position here, he must be careful. I mean, black is probably planning to play knight b4. The knight could go to d3, so this could be a stronghold for black. So f3 immediately is required. And here, if take, e5 is what was played, but if takes, of course, you're taking with the knight, controlling lots of squares on the queen side and the center, and not with the bishop, because you will be giving black the chance to exchange his horrible bishop for the great bishop on g2. Instead, well, this Gelfand didn't capture at once. He played the interesting e-file, counter-attacking in the center. And here it's, well, lots of captures, and it's easy to get lost. You must be careful. D takes e5 is the first move, gotta be played. Instead, if takes g4 is helping black a lot. In fact, white could find himself in lost position if he's not careful enough. Now e takes f4. And now what else? G takes f5, and now black is basically much better. F takes e3, threatening the knight. Knight takes. Now bishop takes d4, with obvious threats of discovered checks, and black is up a pawn. He's much more active. He's got a very dangerous looking passed pawn. This can't be good for white. So g takes f5. Well, the alternatives after having played all these are probably worse, even worse. I mean, e takes f4, bishop takes d4 check, king h1, bishop takes b2. This can be really good. Black has a passed pawn and is up 2 pawns for absolutely nothing. The bishop, for instance, on g2 is a crap piece here. And the other alternative is probably even worse. Rook takes f4 and bishop takes bishop h6, and white probably has to give out the exchange, because otherwise, say rook f1, now bishop takes on e3, and he's going to take the the piece on d2 for free. So white must be careful here not to get lost, but of course Magnus is the world champion, is the best player of the history, etc, etc. He doesn't do that. D takes e5. Here e takes f3, and once again, as in the previous line, knight takes f3, much better. You're not going to allow black to exchange his bad bishop for your excellent bishop. Rook e8 was played. Magnus proposes an alternative in the press conference to take on f3. Bishop takes, and well, he thought that white will probably win this a7 b7 pawns. Black will get instead this e5 pawn, and black could have some chances to draw this because white's passed pawns are doubled, so they are not that as dangerous as just connected passed pawns. So well, it could be. Of course, this is very uncomfortable for black, much worse, but this still could be holdable. Rook e8, well, valid alternative. Now rook a5, overprotecting the pawn on e5, and the rook is really looking good there, doing lots of job. Knight b4, and Magnus here, instead of taking on e7, which was certainly an alternative, played knight d4, just improving his piece, giving lots of power to his bishop on g2. If takes, there were a couple of possibilities here, a couple of possible lines for black. First is probably has to take on f3, and after this he takes on e5. The pawn on e5 is going to fall. This is kind of similar to the line just Magnus suggested, that in which black could be holding. Now rook takes b7, for instance, and bishop takes, e takes, rook b8, maybe holdable because I mean you're pawn down, but white's passed pawns are doubled, so still difficult for white to convert this maybe. And instead, if white doesn't take b7, he takes on e5. This is a much better version for black because now he's getting much more active. Plays knight d3. This is a improvement for black. So knight d4, he didn't took it at once, but now b6, you're kind of forcing him. Well, he has to take. He takes. Now bishop takes e5, and here, well, of course, taking on e5. I mean, black is more active. Rook b7, rook fe8. This doesn't seem that much bad for black. So this Magnus wasn't going to play this. Black is much more active than in other lines. So instead, he didn't take on e5. He went for the very interesting bishop h6 move. You're attacking the rook, so something must be done, it seems. Two alternatives, rook f7, rook f6, and Gelfand found the better one, rook f6. Rook f7 looking more natural, but the point is that after rook a4, you're attacking the knight, and say you protect it with bishop d6, something like that. Now h3, chasing the bishop to h5, and after knight c6, black's position is kind of corrupt because his king is looking bad, and it seems that black is losing exchange by force, if not more. So both bishops are going to be a great job there. This was much worse for black. So rook f7 wasn't played. He played in rook f6, and here h3, bishop h5. There was an alternative here to take first on d4, and after it takes, to play this bishop e2, but it seems that this is better for white. I mean, it seems you're getting out with the bishop. It's not going to be that much locked down, but now rook c1, you're threatening to go to the 7th rank with deadly effect, and black tries to look for counterplay, but it seems to be favoring white in almost any line. I mean, g5 attacking the bishop. Now, interesting move, rook g7 check, king h8. You're not going to allow this coward check going to rook f8. And now, very cool move. This is a funny move, rook e7. You're saying what? You're giving your rook for free? No, you're attacking the rook on e8, in fact, and the bishop on e2 as well, because it can't be taken. Back rank is too weak. This is leading to checkmate. Interesting. So otherwise, I mean, so after rook e7, black, it seems, has to play something like rook g8, but now bishop takes g5, and well, if rook takes g5, rook takes e2, and white is up a pawn, looking really good. If not, rook fg6 and rook c to c7, and this is much worse for black. I mean, this is looking really bad. His 7th rank is very weak. The bishop is going to be a deadly job there. So this was an alternative for black, certainly not looking that great. Bishop h5 was played, and now knight c2. A little bit of a mess here. If knight takes c2, bishop d5 check, and well, rook e6 kind of forced, because otherwise king h8, white plays and wins. In fact, checkmate in one move, a funny mate. Bishop ga7, checkmate, there you go. Funny checkmate. So black would have to give up his exchange at least, so this doesn't look so great. That's why knight c2, you can take the spot. g5, interesting, creating counterplay, attacking the bishop. Now bishop takes g5 and rook g6, and here Magnus played rook takes f5, sorry, protecting his own bishop, kind of attacking the one on e5. The alternative, well, you may say h4 seems silly, as black is going to play h6 in some moment, but this was leading to some interesting move. Lots of pieces here, lots of tactics. Say knight takes c2, black takes the piece. Now white has bishop d5 check, king h7, king h8, sorry, and now interesting, bishop f7, attacking both rooks. And as black is going to lose this exchange, he prefers to give it up on his own will, taking on g5, h takes. Now bishop takes on f5. Remember that bishop which was blocked there on h5. Now it survives and takes on f7. Rook takes f7. Now king g8. Rook takes f5, protecting. Knight takes e3, attacking the rook. Rook f3. Bishop takes b2, and I don't know what the heck is going on here. I mean, who is better? I don't know. A couple of light pieces for the rook, and there you go. A very interesting and a very tough endgame, at least for me. I don't know if I was either black or white. I don't know if I should play for a draw or for a victory or what. I mean, this is complex, at least for me. But this was interesting with some fireworks there. I like this bishop getting reactivated with this rook takes g5, and after that taking on f7. But anyway, rook takes f5 was played, and now h6. Now computer suggesting interesting move, bishop b8. Now knight takes b4, some crazy sequences suggested. Bishop takes a7, and now white has knight c6. The knight is going on with some real serious threats. h6, if for instance bishop b8, knight a7, knight e7 check, and it seems this is much better for white. So h6, bishop h4, now king h7, getting out from these checks from the knight. King h1, if you take on a7, black is going to pile up against white king. Rook g8, rook f2, bishop f3, and black is at least getting his piece back. But I mean, still unclear. There's lots of lines, lots of calculations needed to be done here. h6 was played in the game, and now bishop takes h6 was played. Kind of flashy, as Magnus said. The alternative was probably to take on b4, to take the knight. Now rook takes g5 check, rook takes, h takes, and Magnus said that this still should be a victory, but lots of job to be done, lots of hard work, because black has bishop pair, which favors him a lot, and white's pawns are kind of scattered around without any connection, so still should be a victory. White is 2 pawns up, but hard work ahead. h6 was played, so bishop takes h6. Now rook takes h6. Knight took on b4. I mean, instead of taking on h6, for instance, say bishop f3 was another alternative. And here a couple of options for white. If rook takes f3, knight takes c2. Rook, now bishop, the knight goes to f2. Knight e1. rook e2, bishop g3, and well, curious, the bishop on h6 ain't going anywhere, so say bishop f4, and you can take because there is a pin. White just cannot take at once. The rook is hanging there, but he got an alternative. He can take on e1. Now rook takes e3, rook takes, bishop takes, king f1, bishop d4, and probably a draw. But of course, much better for white, but still probably drawish. And after rook g5, the other alternative, I mean here, the other alternative instead of rook g5, it was to take on f3. So black would take on c2 first. Now rook f2. No, sorry, this is the line we just saw. I just messed it up. This is the move I wanted to show you. Rook g5, and now rook takes g5, bishop takes g5, bishop takes g2, knight takes b4, and now bishop takes on h3. Once again, black has bishop pair, so with some more than decent chances to hold this. So lots of lines, as you can see here, are really a mess. Should be calculated to reach a better or a worse endgame for each player. But rook take h6 was played here, so Gelfand is slowly losing kind of control. This doesn't seem to be going well for him. I think he had already time troubles. Knight takes b4 here. Now he took on b2, but I mean this is already 2 pawns up, and white has much better coordination. This is going down for black. Knight d5, the knight is going in. King h8 to avoid some checks. Rook b7, just going after the pawn. Bishop d1, black is desperately trying to create counterplay on the king side, but he's not going to have enough. b4, rook g8, knight e7 attacking the rook. Rook d8, bishop e4. I guess with the idea, for instance, to go to rook f7, control the 7th rank. The bishop would be situated very great here. I mean, this is a monster piece controlling half board here. Bishop f6. Now rook takes b6, attacking bishop obviously. King g7, but after rook f2, Gelfand resigned. White has just too many threats, too many discovered attacks, too many checks, too many things to be holding this for black. So Gelfand resigned. 37 moves, and the first game of this first round to be finishing. So here we go. Magnus in a good shape, winning his first game with white pieces, and let us see what the tournament gets for us in the next rounds. Thanks for watching.